minutes time span to present their research. And afterwards, we will have a question and answer session for each paper. And if we have enough time left at the end of the 3 sessions, we may have again joint question and answer session for all 3 papers. So I assume all presenters are here. So I would like to invite the first presenter group. It's a co-authored paper by 3 authors, Kutay Tinç, Reyhan Eren, and Ida, excuse me for spelling, Jerkli, I think. So using mathematical models in game design and survival, mechanical case is the title of the paper. So I will give the word the presenter of this paper. I'm not given who is the presenter, the name, but I think it's Kutay, yes.
Yeah. Well, we'll be co-presenting it together with Reyhan.
Okay.
Hello everyone, good morning. And as the name suggests, we'll be presenting a mechanics case, a survival mechanics case, which is based on mathematics. And Reyhan, are you there?
I'm here as well. Welcome everyone. We will talk about the game mechanics design and mainly focus on survival mechanics in this case. Our main purpose will be understanding how we can take the attention of players and use it for a player to eager playing more. We can go to the next page. Yes. Game mechanics are mostly modeled to have a huge role on that goal actually, to eager playing more by players. In real life, people interact by their environment in various ways, and we should understand how we can reflect or transmit these interactions on a game level. Some researchers show that players enjoy to live experiences in a game which are realistic enough for them to feel like they are in a virtual realm with highly realistic real-world references. So we wanted to model this survival mechanics with respect to that goal. Players want to bond with the story of a game. Generally, that's the main purpose of them. If they can set a bond with the game, they're eager to play more, and they want to feel in control as they think they have got power to control their own life in real life. So in this page, we explain the game designers should estimate the need of realisticity, with other words like how fictional a game scene is supposed to be, because even in real life we have good days or bad days that we enjoy, we chill, or we struggle to try to survive. In a game, generally this balance also should be set and saved by designers. Dynamic difficult adjustment was our first goal by modeling survival mechanics. Can we go to the previous page, please? Previous one. With respect to dynamic difficult adjustment, what we need in a game is to set a balance between the game and player. Interaction and mechanics reaction to these interactions of the players can also be leveled with respect to adjustment. In each level, players should feel the insight of the need to survive, adapt to challenges, new ones, unexpected ones. And in each level, here a designer shall model each level according to the same questions, like is one life permanent death okay for the game character, or more is needed? He should also suggest that if a character may be reborn in a game, or shall it start from scratch with a full life and 0 resources, or shall there be any say collected items for their second life? Answer to those questions change players' moving patterns and responses and their interactions to the changes in survival rate fundamentally. That will fundamentally change the answers and would change the follow of the story for players as well. In addition to that, we face with Maslow's hierarchy of needs hypothesis. In this study, Maslow says there is an order for a player, for a human being, to reach a type of satisfaction, happiness, eagerness, we can call that, satisfaction pyramid. Hypothesis suggests that we need to first fulfill our basic needs like food, shelter, and more. If we can satisfy these needs, we can reach to the top of the pyramid for ourselves. Each level in a game should be designed like a treasure map, according to this hypothesis. And at each point, there is a clue and a work for next challenge should be prepared by designers. In games, these are the resources or mechanics we design. More to that, we shall also be aware of the need cognitive interactions of a game character, modeling complex health systems and mechanics as well. External effects versus game characters' interaction within the game have huge importance by modeling these mechanics. Physical needs of the game character should also be considered while modeling the resources. Cognitive reactions of the player and complex health systems should also be considered while modeling by the designer. For each game category, requirements vary. We can go to next page. In this study, we study different type of games, like horror games, survival games, war games, space games. And each category requires different mechanics. During our study, we examined many categories and we focus mainly on space colonization games because in these days, as you may suggest, thanks to Elon Musk, they are becoming more popular. While the capabilities of the game engines expand and improve, and the graphics and animations and sound effects causes for new games to take place of the old version, they demanded in the market more rapidly, and there's an incline on the demand. For example, in the Space Colony game, it's an old game. There's the idle version of it in these days, and it is leaving its place to the idle game because concept is almost the same yet. The mechanics used and the graphics and the engine is better with today's capabilities. Now we will explain the survival mechanics and how we did model them.
Okay, what does a gamer need? First, we have to answer this question, then we can move on to the mechanics easily. Now, the needs that you see on the slide is not all of them, but they are the most basic ones. First of all, any gamer needs to win. So most people play games to win.
I will continue right now.
What? Sorry, what? Okay. And then there is the immersion part. We have to be able to believe that we are inside the game and we can suspend our disbelief about the game because most games require this, the suspension of disbelief, because they are not real. So we need to be able to immerse ourselves in them. And then there's a depth. Not everyone, but at least for me, it's the most important part of the game, the story. We need to be able to live in a story. And then there's the playability. Are we going to be able to do stuff that we want to do easily? Is it playable? Is it replayable at least? Can we play it again and again? These are the most basic needs of a gamer. Of course, there are lots of other needs like the bragging rights or stuff like that. But what we are focusing on are the mechanics. So we need to have a playable and immersive game at our hands. So to do that, we need different survival mechanics, different stuff that people need to do to survive. Basically, when we talk about survival, when we talk about games that we need to keep going on, the most critical thing is our health, our life, or we need to be able to maintain it. And it's usually the most classic and the easily, let's say, mechanized part of the game, because they are usually independent of other survival mechanics most of the time. Your health is about your life points, and it's about the damage you take. So the rest of the mechanics does not really factor into it all the time. On the other hand, there's also the stamina. If we are talking about the survival game, we are talking about taking actions. We are talking about running, we are talking about climbing, we are talking about, let's say, cutting down a tree or attacking our enemies or defending ourselves from them. These are all actions that actually exert a character. It should be a tiring game. So our stamina, our total available energy pool, let's call it, is actually the most volatile stat in the game ever, because it keeps changing all the time. It has to keep changing all the time because we'll be running and then we'll be resting and then we'll be fighting and stuff like that, and it will just keep going down and up, down and up. So it's just the most volatile one, as I said. And it is strongly dependent on other survival mechanics, like our food or water levels. How thirsty are we? How hungry are we? Our stamina might drop faster if we are thirstier, or recover slower if we are hungrier. And stuff like that might affect our survival rate as well. And our food and water level, our hungriness and our thirstiness, let's call them, are as important as the stamina one. They're not as volatile because they are usually dependent on time, but they're still as important as stamina. And of course, there are other attributes as well. There's the fatigue one we can consider. All these attributes and all these bars and stats, they are not in all the games, in all survival games. But if you want to, take them and use them all together, we can try to make them more, realistic. To do that, we need more mathematics in the game. For example, when we talk about fatigue, it's about the amount of stamina you have depleted that you cannot rest back to gain. So it's like an upper limit for your stamina. Let's say that your stamina, your energy bar, starts at 100. And when you try to, take actions, when you exert yourself, it just drains, like say, down to 50. And then you start to rest. You just start walking instead of running, or just stop there and try to rest a bit. So it fills back up. But if you have fatigue, then it will act as a deterrent. So it will not, for example, if you have 10 points of fatigue, it will not go above 90 or stuff like that. So it just acts as the upper limit, like a mathematical functions limit. And your activities will just, define how your fatigue level affects your total stamina as well. How fast you accumulate fatigue, how fast you lose stamina, stuff like that. So you also have your weight carried, for example. You may be carrying stuff. So if you're not carrying a lot of stuff, if you have light weight on your shoulders or on your back, for example, then your stamina wouldn't drain that much when you're running. But if you're carrying heavy stuff, and realistically, it would be much tiring for you, and you will get tired much faster. And then there's the run speed, which will most probably be affected by your fatigue and the amount of weight you carry, for example. So as you can see, all these attributes and stats are just intertwined with each other. They just depend on each other. And then there's the perception one. Now, perception can be taken in two different ways. In one way, we can just think of, think about it. When you're looking for a key at home, you have lost something and you're looking for it. You usually look close by, okay? You don't try to see at the end of the room from one end. You just try to take a look at the, 1 meter, circumference around you. So you just try to find the key there and you just keep moving. So your perception range at that moment is 1 meter because you are looking for something specific. So you're just looking around you in a specific range. But if you were just walking down a path, your perception range would change because you're not looking for something specific. You're just trying to perceive your surroundings. You're just looking around, trying to see new stuff. So it might be 10 meters, 20 meters, or maybe, larger or smaller, depending on your perception rate at that time, or your, focus at that time. So a range unit, a range, let's say, variable is needed for perception. In the games, this can be, modeled as a highlight, an object highlight mechanic. Let's say if your perception range is 5 meters when you're walking down a, road, then any object that is interactable that enters your 5 meter range should be highlighted. This is just an example. But if your range is changing due to stuff you're doing, for example, you're running, so your range is smaller, or you're fighting, so your range is almost non-existent. Stuff like that should, just affect your perception range. And then there's the blurriness. Now, in real life, we may get blurry vision sometimes. That might be because of our, health, our physique, but it might also be due to external effects. We don't know what. For example, foggy stuff. In the fog, we can't see clearly. So it might be accepted as a blurred vision. Or we might be poisoned, for example. So our vision is getting blurry. So we are sick, we're getting blurry vision. That can also be a part of the perception mechanic. So that also might depend on mathematical functions as well. So when we talk about mathematical functions, we're actually talking about these stuff. These are the general formulations that we have come up with that we can use in games. We have did some research for them, medicinal research actually. We did some, game research as well, but mostly it's mechanical medicinal research. So we can say that our run speed, for example, would be dependent on our, let's say here, our fatigue level at that time, our weight that we are carrying at that time, and our most, maximum weight carry capability. So let's say that we can carry up to 50 kilograms of weight on our back. We're a strong person, we can just carry 50 kilograms easily. That's our limit, but still easily. And our carrying capacity at that moment is 10 kilograms. So our run speed is fast enough. But if we are carrying 50 kilograms out of our 50 kilogram range, then our run speed will be slower. And the same thing applies for fatigue, of course. As fatigue increases, our run speed will become lower and lower. We can use lots of different functions for this. I will get into them later on. But for example, for the perception, now if this is the range we're talking about, then fatigue and our activity would apply into this, just enter into this function as variables as well. And of course, we have the stamina, the most volatile one. Now, in stamina, we are talking about a time effect. As time goes on, if we're not even doing anything, if we're just standing still, our stamina would change, because then it will be a resting space. If we're just not moving and standing still, then we're resting, which means that our stamina would be feeling, however slow or fast, depending on our, current condition. So it depends on the I value, the time value. So each I+1, each state on stamina, each stage on stamina actually, time is dependent on stage. Each stage in stamina would be, related to the stage before it, like a Markov chain. And then it's the same for the water and food levels. If we are just standing still, not doing anything, our water and food level will drop, slow by slow, but it will still drop. Now, with water and food, most players in survival games have a problem. They say that after a meal, for example, you have filled your belly, you have eaten, you have drank enough water to keep you sustained, you wouldn't feel hunger or thirst for some time. Think about yourself after a meal, after dinner or lunch. You wouldn't need to, consume any more water or food after some time, after you have eaten enough. You would just wouldn't feel the hunger or the thirstiness. Now, most players say that in survival games, when you have a full bar, full water or food level bar, that bar depletes quickly from, for example, 100% to 99%, almost instantly. And they say that it's an immersion breaker. They don't want to see that. They want to feel, fulfilled in hunger or thirst, food level and water level, because they don't want to think about that for some time. They just want to play the game. If the bars just start depleting as soon as they are filled, they will feel, obligated to look for more food or water instead of playing the game. So they say that this is a deal breaker. They don't want to see this. So we can prevent this with simple mathematical functions, for example. And then, of course, there's the fatigue. And fatigue will be an accumulating, let's say it will keep accumulating. It will just keep growing bigger and bigger. It will not lessen, it will not go down unless we rest, like sleep. So we will just keep getting tired and tired more and more. And all these functions, all these changes, increment functions, as you can see, they all have their own increment values, will depend on each other. Not all of them, of course, but fatigue will be dependent on everything you can see. It's dependent on the weight you carry, it's dependent on your food and water level, because if you are thirstier, you get tired more quickly, so you will be feeling your fatigue level go up higher and higher, and stuff like that. They will all be dependent on each other. So how can we write these though? Yes, they are dependent on each other, but is it enough to keep them, for example, as a linear function? No, it's not. As an example, I will talk about the stamina one here. So the change in stamina, the increment in stamina will be dependent on our activity, our weight carried, our water and food levels. We know that. And how can we, take this into account? With a very simple, actually, mathematical function. the sigmoid function, or as in here, the logistics function, is a widely used function. It's even used in artificial intelligence, you know, about neural networks and stuff, but it's used in almost every part you can imagine, in statistics as well and stuff like that. And the sigmoid function, or the logistics function in here, is an S-curve function. And normally it's between 0 and 1 for the logistics one. But in our example, it's between 1/2 to 1, because we don't go into negative values for our weight or activity or stuff like that. So they will never get the negative part. So it's actually going to be, you know, multiplied by our AI, which is our activity value at the time, which is also being multiplied by our constant force stamina. Now, in here, you can see that the higher our activity exertion value, the higher our increment in, you know, change in the stamina drop as well. So, which can also be said for our weight carried. So, as we increase our weight, we will get tired more quickly. As we increase our, you know, water and food levels, because they are better, we will get less tired from the same activity. So this is just an example. There are many different functions that we can use, that not just the sigmoid ones, but other functions as well. But turning this into a mathematical function will just help us keep track of everything easier and better. And as it's a nonlinear function, they will change. So for example, the same activity at the same, for example, food and water level may not cost the same, you know, for example, amount of stamina if you have different weights you're carrying, which is logical because you are carrying something more, so you have to get tired, more tired by swinging a sword, for example. So the thing here is to keep in mind that we can just find our perfect function for each game in a different way, because these functions, whatever function we use, they have to be tested, of course. And during the play test, there will be lots of parameters changing, some variables entering and leaving and stuff like that. Which is very, you know, normal. But these functions will keep the game more believable, more immersive, because the players want to, you know, they don't need to know about the functions. They can just see the results by themselves, and they can just deduce that, okay, I'm carrying more weight, so I'll be getting tired more easily, which is like real life. They don't need to know the functions. They can just see their effects, which is, you know, more immersive for them. So basically, we already use physics, lots of different physics in games, but we need more pure mathematics as well. We know lots of mathematics are going into games. Of course they are, because of our physics rules, but still pure mathematics for other mechanics should be considered to, you know, be used in those games, because that way we can just make the games more immersive and more believable. So thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
Pardon. Okay, thank you, Kutay. If the audience have any questions, now we can take it. And if don't, we can move to the second presentation. And I think we will have at the end at least a couple of minutes for whole questions for 3 sessions as well. So no questions. Okay, so the second paper is, again, Kutay is in this he is a co-author for the second paper as well. And there are 3 authors, Gina Al-Halabi, Kutay Tunç, and Ertuğrul Süngü. The name of the paper is The Impact of Human-Centered Design of Game Mechanics on Feelings and Belonging. So is Kutay, are you presenting?
Yeah, but Gina will share and I will start.
Gina, and you will be present, okay. So the word is yours.
Thank you.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
But we need your voice.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
As always.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. So yes. Hi everyone.
Wait a second. So in this research paper, we have been researching about the impact of human-centered design of game mechanics on feelings of belonging. So we will talk about belonging here, how we can, feel, safe and secure in a place, how we can feel belonging to a society or a group or other stuff. But to start that, we start with the games. So what do we know about games? Now, people like us are social beings. We are all social beings and we need social interactions. So we get affected by everyday mental inputs and we react to them as well. So we have an input and output, let's say, mechanic in our head. So when we see something, for example, it might be an accident, we react to it. We may feel bad about it. When we receive bad news, we may feel bad about it. But we also can change. Our reactions to certain stuff can change. There's a very easy and very easily relatable subject for that. It's think of yourself in a subway going to somewhere in a train, metro car, and you hear a baby crying. So there are two types of reactions to this. At least for me, it was like that. The first one is before I was married and before I had kids, I was just like, okay, why can't the mother or the father silence him? Okay, it's irritating to me. Now, after I had my kids and I know why they cry, I was like, when I hear that input now, when I get that input now, that social input, I'm like, okay, why is the baby crying? Is there anything I can do? Is it hungry? Is it, cold? Is it, does it have a fever? Something like that. So we change based on our, the inputs we have, based on our experiences we have had. So people can actually change for better or for worse, depending on our experiences, how we can change. Games can change people as well. But not every game can do that. We can use games to change people, and there are actually lots of different names for these. We will get into them in a second. But changing people through games is possible. There's a whole trove of research on that, so it's easily understandable. But it's the designing of a game that can change people. That's the real, let's say, hurdle here, the real, objective here as well. So we want to design something that can change people. Next slide, please. Now, when we talk about changing people, there are three different types of games that we use as, changing people. The first one is the serious games. The second is impact games, and the third is the pro-social games. Now, actually, these all of them have the same intention. They have different names, and they have similar goals. Now, serious games talk about education, educating people, teaching people something, and behavior change, helping them change their behavior. That might be any kind of behavior change you can think of. When we talk about impact games, which is relatively more, relatively newer, they talk about helping society through games. Now, helping society through games might be talking about education or behavior change as well, but it's not the same thing. For example, think of an army simulation. There are lots of army simulations as games that are played for fun as well, but an army simulation can be a serious game. We want to teach our soldiers something, how to attack the enemy, how to defend themselves. So we are teaching them, we're educating them, but it's not an impact game. It doesn't have any impact on society. It can be, debatable, but still, I don't see the benefit for the society of training an army. So impact games have the goal of helping society. Whereas the pro-social games, they're about reduction of aggression or ingraining someone with a helpful attitude, teaching someone to gain a helpful attitude. It's like a serious game as well, but it's a specific goal in mind. So we can think of these three game types as different, cousins, with serious games being the, the set above the other two, maybe. Although I'm pretty sure there are some, games for impact people that would, object to this, but this is how I see it, because every other type of game, impact or pro-social, can be defined as a serious game if you want to, because serious game in the end has the same, global goals: educate people or change their behavior in somehow. So we know that they don't have to be the same thing, but they can be intertwined and they can relate to each other easily. So Gina.
Okay. So The aim of this paper was to define mechanics that can ingrain that helpful behavior or that can influence the senses of belonging of people and improve it and help them feel better. So firstly, we did that by conducting a survey, and the survey was based on the generalized belonging scale made in 2011 and on the sense of belonging instrument made in 1995. In that survey, we asked the participants to evaluate their senses of belonging. For instance, they would evaluate statements like, I can be myself in this place, I feel like I belong in this place, and people surrounding me are friendly with me, they treat me with respect. According to these statements, we took the mean average of the participants, which were a sample of 100 people. And after doing so, we asked them another question, which was evaluating the factors that would help them feel that they belong, which was related to, would you feel a sense of belonging if you shared similar interests with other people, or if you spoke the same language, or if you understood each other's jokes. According to these results, we analyzed the survey and we came up with 4 factors that increase the sense of belonging. And the first one was receiving and giving help from and to the environment. Whenever we give help or receive help, our belongingness increases, and shared humor or playfulness, which comes from understanding each other's jokes, and support, which came from people supporting each other, but regardless of their cultures and regardless of anything else, they would feel support but not judged. And then the final one was a set of normative patterns. People felt that they belong whenever they had shared similar manners with each other. And manners in this perspective, from the social aspect, it means a set of patterns that they constantly do, that they don't break out. So the aim of this paper was to take these factors and to transform them into game mechanics that can be implemented into pro-social games or any games, which their main focus was to increase the sense of belonging. And of course, in games, there's already a sense of belonging through its formed culture, because eventually the game media, the game medium transcended just a game industry. It started to have its own culture through the spoken language between people who identify themselves with the industry and with similar attitudes and values and goals. And even games that we have today, like online RPG games, they already provide a model that fosters the senses of belonging. There was done and made research on that topic. And MMORPGs provide that model because the mechanics that revolve around them are usually providing choice, control, collaboration, challenge, and achievement. And whenever we play with the other players and interact with them, it contributes to our belongingness. So there are already existing games that actually increase our senses of belonging. So why not take those mechanics and define them and allow others to use them in other games? So before I explain the defined mechanics, I would like to elaborate that we define those mechanics using a game design tool called machinations. In machinations, it allows us to scheme or make a diagram out of the internal economy that's happening inside the game. It allows us to scheme the interaction between the players, and it makes it much easier to define a mechanic. Usually, defining a mechanic is more of an abstract thing that we cannot really see into place. But with this tool, it is much easier to actually define it. And in the tool, this triangle resembles a source, which is an unlimited amount of source, unlike this pool, which resembles a limited source. These will become easier to understand after I show the mechanics, but sorry, one second. Yes, I apologize. It will become easier to understand, but basically the main concept is that the source gives us unlimited amount of source. The drain drains them. The pool keeps them in a certain pool or entity, and the gate allows the transference of resources from one entity to another entity. The converter converts these resources from one type to another, and the trader trades them between players. It happens all through this connection, and this state connection triggers them, and this end condition shows you whether you've won or lost. So anyway, the first mechanic we defined was based off the factors support and receiving help, choice, and conflict. Choice and conflict come from the analyzed MMORPGs, and support and receiving help come from our surveys. So over here, over here, you can see that you have two chances to cooperate with others. And every time you try to cooperate with these people, you have a 50% chance of either increasing your safety, or you have a 50% chance of not gaining any safety. Let's say you did gain your safety, it increases, and by the time this becomes 0, everything you cooperated with starts to increase intervally. The point here is of this mechanic is that you have two choices. Either you do not cooperate with anyone and you do not lose any safety, nothing increases to you, nothing happens to you, you're unaffected, or you cooperate with others and you have two risks, actually one risk. Either nothing happens to your safety unless it decreases by 5. So you can consider that as trying to help other people, but them rejecting your help and maybe hurting your feelings. Or you could actually cooperate with them and you feel good about yourself, your safety increases or your belongingness increases. And then after you've cooperated with so many people, it just becomes a normal situation that people are helping you back, which is why you are always gaining at a constant interval. So it shows how sometimes supporting others can cause us to receive help constantly. And doing that or implementing that can increase or contribute to our belongingness. Now, the second one is, it's basically strategic trading. So over here in this mechanic, red cannot cooperate without blue. No matter what they do, and no matter how much they try, they cannot cooperate without each other. So blue starts off with 2 blues and red starts off with 2 reds. But if they want to produce anything, they need at least 1 blue and at least 1 red. So they have to trade with each other. And if they don't trade with each other, they can't produce anything. But let's say they traded with each other one time, they produced something, now their production stops. They can't do anything anymore because they've used all of their resources. They traded with each other, they produced, and now they have nothing. So the only way for them to start their production again or reach this point again is for them to trade what they produced again. So this also contributes to belongingness because they need each other and they need to give help in order to receive help, and they fall into a set of normative patterns because no matter how much they try, they have to keep going on in the same pattern or else it stops. It doesn't work anymore. And then we have this mechanic, which is based off game theory, and it's based off the prisoner's dilemma. And basically in the prisoner's dilemma, there are usually 3 situations. The first situation is that both players cooperate with each other and each gain the same equal amount of resources. And the second situation is that one of them cheats, but the one who cheated gains and the one who didn't cheat loses. And then there's the third situation where both of them cheat and none of them gain anything. And this applies to belongingness because as long as they're both following the same normative pattern of them cooperating with each other, they're both gaining. And as long as they're giving help and receiving help, they're also both gaining. And then we have the factor of humor and playfulness because, for instance, if they fell into the pattern of giving help all the time and then one player decides, I want to break this pattern, then comes humor because that other player is trolling him after a long set of pattern that they used to follow. So these were some of the examples of the game mechanics that can be implemented using the tool and using the factors analyzed from the survey, and defining game mechanics that focus on foster belongingness can happen through factors like giving and receiving help, support, humor, normative patterns, and we see that it's possible due to the examples elaborated before. And games with such focus are considered pro-social games. And limitations is that extensive testing of the mechanics are required because the belongingness of others differs according to different factors. So generalizing it requires a bit more testing. And yeah, if there are any questions or anything anyone would like to add?
Gina, it was really interesting paper. So is there any questions from the audience?
Yes, I have.
Okay. I have to look at the chat who is raising the hands. Hold on. Then I cannot see the name at the chat, but whoever is Demet?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go on, please.
Yeah, I'm not in this discipline, and I have a freshman question for all of them. You talk about some surveys that used for develop the games. These surveys, who did this survey? I wondered that one question. Yeah, is there any support disciplines or any support companies for understanding people's needs in the game spaces, in the game?
Well, generally in psychology, there are generalized scales and tests to be made for such issues. So what I did, or what we did, is that we just took those generalized questionnaires and we combined them together. So they are based on actual scales that we just put together and sent out to people to fill out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a question as well. So I really, it took my attention. It was really nicely presented paper. The name of the game, like you have a type of the games, I think, yes. You in your beginning of presentation, you said that there are 3 game series: impact and social games, and serious games are caused by behavioral change or teaching something. And in your research, you actually look at the belongingness.
Yeah.
Yes. So the question came in my mind: how do you make a distinction between belongingness and addiction? So what is the percentage of belongingness that is really healthy, and what is the percentage of belongingness that makes you addicted and not anymore belong, that makes into like a problems, causing a problem?
Okay, well, the belongingness we are talking about is like a cultural thing here, actually. Think about, for example, immigrants coming to a country. Do they belong to your country? From your perspective and their perspective. In their perspective, at the start, if they are, not feeling welcome, they don't belong there. They feel that they don't belong there. But if they are welcomed properly, if they feel like they can be part of the society, then their belongingness level rises. This is the same for, in the other perspective. When someone else comes to your house or your country as an immigrant, do you feel that they belong there? The belongingness here is about belongingness to a culture or society. It's not about belongingness to a game. So it's not really an addiction type of thing. If I did get the question right, at least.
Okay, so cultural society, you mean the people who are really engaged with playing the game?
Yes, so we are trying to, for example, there are lots of games that are about immigrants and accepting them. For example, some games try to make sure that, I don't remember the names actually, but there were some games that tried to, for Americans, that these were done for Americans, try to, raise awareness and give them a change in attitude against Mexicans, against Spanish or whatever they are called there right now, I don't know, against the immigrants to their country. So they were trying to help them through games. They are trying to make the white people acknowledge others and lower the racism, for example, in America. There were games like that. And these are both impact games because they're trying to help the society, they're trying to change the society and trying to ingrain a helpful attitude to them. So when you see someone that needs help, even if they're an immigrant, you want to help them, stuff like that. So this is the main, focus of this paper as well. How can we use mechanics to induce those feelings in people?
For societal impacts. But another question would be like, there is a lot of discussion that the game industry will get really involved in the education and then they will be educational models will be developed through the.
We're actually working on them, and we have another paper tomorrow.
Or tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So I have to listen that one.
Arturo, you can answer that one, I think.
No, it's tomorrow. Like we will talk about it. Like we have a really strong paper. We believe in it so much. We did something about the educational parts too. So yes, it's tomorrow. Due to tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. Okay, then we will skip that one. Any other questions?
I would like to add something. I really appreciated Birgül Hocam. This is Özge Jordan speaking.
Yes.
I also would like to thank to Kutay and their students and the colleagues. They supported the conference quite much. And this actually study was very interested in me because I'm also working with the Syrian immigrants, and belonging is one of our key topic. I also wondering the disciplines of yours. I know, Kutay, you are from mathematics, but what about Gina and Ertuğrul?
My PhD is from the communication, but I work in the game culture in my dissertation. So I focus on the gaming culture in Turkey and in global, but and then Turkey, focus on Turkey.
Gina?
I'm studying game design and I'm minoring in psychology, and I am actually Syrian myself. So
I see. Okay. Nice to meet you then. I'm also working with them in another discipline, in interior architectural perspective, but these cultural issues, especially place identity, belongingness, are very important topics for us. Study with that kind of study with the immigrants. That's why I also very impressed to your methodology as well. But it's very nice to see from different disciplines to focus on the same issues from the different expertise. Thank you for your.
And we can have a little bigger study together.
Yeah, would be nice.
Yes.
That's really amazing. Like, I'm working about the identity a lot, especially when you say identity and some other keywords. Like, it's also important to understand that gamers has another identity too. So,
guys, thank you.
So I think we have questions from Bartu.
Hello. First of all, it was a great presentation. Thank you. And I would like to ask, like, where do you publish these social games, serious games? Which one do you prefer, like itch.io or your own site or somewhere else? Like, I know that Steam is not a good media for that, and usually people put that on itch.io, basically. So do you think it is effective way to publish there, or do you prefer another site for that or another place for that?
Well, honestly, it would be right now, pro-social games or games like that do not have as big of a medium as other games do. But I mean, even on itch.io, there are games like that there, but I think it would be nice that eventually these games have their own place, and they kind of do on Steam, but in different ways. Usually they're referenced as impact games. So if you actually, they don't really explain to you what's going on. For instance, games like Gris or Life is Strange, these are considered to be impact games, but you have to focus on what they're actually trying to tell you.
The thing is, where you publish the games isn't as much important as how many people they can reach. And for that one, you actually need government support. Because however you publish, you're an independent company or person in the company in the end, and you cannot reach that many people easily. You need government support to raise awareness in these kind of issues. So we actually need, I don't know, maybe grants from TÜBİTAK or stuff like that to make it a bigger project, to maybe make a platform for it in, while working with the government and stuff like that. So using itch.io, Steam, or any other medium isn't that isn't enough. It just isn't enough. You need government support to be able to really successful on these sort of games.
Yeah, I agree on that. I wish I could see you all in the Games and Politics exhibition where the Goethe was doing it. So, maybe these kind of events can promote these games. Like there are lots of games that I learned in that exhibition, for example. Like these kind of maybe these kind of events can be made more than that. And I would like to ask one last question from mine, a bit personal, but what's your best impact game or serious game so far, besides your own games, if you're doing it?
Hard question.
Yeah.
It's a tricky question.
One best.
No one is answering. It's
Well,
nice.
depends on who you ask, but I would say Papers, Please, I guess. You play with people's lives then, so you have to be merciful or not. Stuff
It's
like
also commercial too. Like it's not a serious only or impact only game.
Yes,
That's good.
commercial as well, but it actually gives you the feeling of holding a person's life in your hands. So you have to, think about it, really.
Yeah, and others have any games?
Okay, I think we have to really give people's time for lunch. So it will be good if you can continue later on for discussions.
Yeah.
So we are already 15 minutes ahead, I think. So if we can finish around 1, that will be great for people to have lunch. Thank you for questions, but the platform is open. I think you can ask always to each other more further questions. So our third presenter is Antonella Serra. I think she is here, and her the title of the paper is "Design a Game Tutorial Involving Users, the Educational Game PUDCAD Case Study."
Good morning, everyone. I share my screen for the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's okay.
We can't
no.
see it, Antonella.
Sorry?
We cannot see
it
right now.
One moment. Now?
No.
No. One moment.
Do you want us to share it instead of you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sharing it right now. Oh,
okay.
You made it.
Thanks. Okay. I hope the audio is good.
It is.
Okay. My name is Antonella Serra, and I am a research fellow at University of Florence, Department of Architecture. I work at LED, L-E-D, Economics and Design Lab. And our team is a partner of the European PUDCAD Project 2. My speech is a report of the work methodology used to define the structure, contents, and graphic and textual element of a PUDCAD game tutorials. PUDCAD educational game aims at introducing design, architecture, and engineer students to universal design. It is foreseen to be used in higher education teaching activities, that is to say, formal learning environment. It can be also used autonomously by single students and a young designer in informal learning environment. The website dedicated to the game is currently under construction. From here, users can download the game and play offline. The website will also contain a special section for tutorials, one external tutorial to the game and video tutorials, one learning course on the principle of universal design, a section that collects links to external resources on universal design. These resources are designed to be connected to each author. Where appropriate, the tutorial, for example, will contain links to specific learning course content or the external resources. Teaching new players how to play is one of the key challenges in the video game design. This aspect becomes particularly important in the case of non-regular players, as the game must be a friendly, funny, and immersive experience even for this type of users. The contribution of tutorials in supporting players' engagement and reducing game leave has been largely documented. There are also studies that demonstrated the effectiveness of tutorial, both internal and external to the game context, in facilitating players learning the game, especially new players. Given the objective of the PUDCAD game and its use context, the external tutorial to the game will be available online directly on the PUDCAD website, downloadable and available offline, available in the easily printable format. Prior to the activities with the users, there was an analysis of the main components of the game: storytelling, mechanics, challenges, helps offered to the player, which I will try to summarize below. As for storytelling, the game is set in a high school at the end of classes. The main character, a boy with motor disability, need to reach the bus stop, but the school space shows several difficulties in this part, and the players have to help solve them. The table on the slide emphasizes the relationship among A, the sequence of the areas of the building involved in the game, B, the problem that the player has to solve, C, the tool he has to use. The first column indicates the object that the main character will have to retrieve before going back home. This slide presents an overview of the main controls. The player moving the game using the keys Q, E, A, D on the keyboard, as shown in this image. He clicks at the same time Q and A to move forward, A and D to go backward, Q and D to turn right, A and E to turn left. The wheelchair can be stopped pushing the pause button. With the left mouse button, you can select the element of the game. While moving the mouse back and forth, you can change the player's view downward and upward. The player's interventions of the school building, solving the problems related to universal design. First, clicking on the edit mode button, and then selecting the appropriate edit control to solve the specific problem. The player received two types of help during the game. On the gray bar at the bottom of the screen, there are indications on the objective to be reached. When the player does not interact with the controls, suggestion on the use will appear. On the right side of the slide, there are the type of SMS message that the main character received during the game and that contribute to identify the events. Below, some monologues of the protagonist reporting thought or emotions. The activities described below aimed to verify clarity, completeness, effectiveness, readability of the proposed visual and textual content. In addition, the motivation to play. Human-centered design methodologies have been applied specifically, user tests, thinking aloud, and 2 questionnaires. The process involved the user and was iterative. The activity with the users was carried out in 2 phases. In the first phase, student and the young designer viewed the contents of the basic tutorial, and during a video recorded session, they formulated with thinking aloud the information received, adding personal comments about the user experience. They then answered the questionnaire 1, in which they expressed their opinion on the clarity of the information received. The second phase started with a game session, followed by a second questionnaire, which investigates the effectiveness of the information received from the tutorial toward to the game. This slide shows an example of the slide presented to the student. Each of them developed a synthetic concept of the tutorial. Example, keywords are highlighted. The representation of the control and of the problem are simplified, but at the same time, they are contextualized to the game. Starting from this material, the minimum content of the tutorial has been developed through the question and the observation from the student. It is essential in the text and very figurative, calibrated to the need of the student. But let's see how the work has been done. A sample of 12 people, students and young designers, participated in the activity. The group consisted of 6 boys and 6 girls, aged between 20 and 29 years.
We lost your voice, Anatella.
Yes, the audio.
Now it's back.
Okay. One moment. No. Okay. One moment.
Antonella, it came back.
Sorry, one moment. Okay. No.
Antonella, puoi fare ad alta voce?
Non si riesce a sollevare, sai? Non riesco
sì.
a sollevare.
Sì, capisco. Ok.
Scusami, Tagile, forse dal vostro... Sorry. Dal
Ce
vostro
l'abbiamo?
certo, sì, ce l'avete.
Sì,
Forse dal vostro
ok.
computer tu ce l'hai?
Io no, però posso chiedere a Sena un attimo, per favore.
Grazie. E basta cliccare una volta per far partire l'audio.
Ok, un attimo che
Siamo alla
organizzo.
slide.
Ok, un attimo.
Scusami, non si sente davvero.
Senacığım, sen açabilir misin? Bizdeki dosyadan. Hı hı. Bir kere basman yeterliymiş.
Peki.
Okay. 12.
12. Okay.
12, yes.
Um,
Okay. Presentation. And one click for the audio. No, one click in the slide. No.
Students and young designers participated in the activity. The group consisted of 6 boys and 6 girls, aged between 20-29 years, attending the third year of the bachelor's degree course in design or the second years of the master degree course in design. One of them has just graduated. The graphic on skills show an average of a little experience of video games, an average knowledge of the English language, but a previous experience in a universal design carried out in academic context.
Okay. Next.
A sample.
Yes. One click in.
Show a preview of the 2 questionnaires, which we will go now to see in more detail. The first one consists of 5 questions, the second of 2 questions.
Okay.
The slide shows first questionnaire, question 1. Based on the topics you said, are the following item clear? The theme of the game objective, the setting of the game, the narrative development, the player's goal, the motion controls, the edit control. The theme of the game and the motion control have all positive responses. 12. The score of the player's score is also very high at 11. The graph shows which theme we had to work on the most, and precisely the narrative development, the setting of the game, but also the game objective and the edit control.
Okay. The next
question.
Thanks. Another click?
I did, but it's not working right now.
No.
So I'm going to reopen it.
Okay. Yes.
The second graph explains even better the process of correcting the contents of the tutorial. It highlights, for example, how starting with user 8, the game objective becomes clear. The same thing with edit control. while the issues of setting of the game and the narrative developed remain unresolved. The second question asks, in order to play the game, do you need additional information of the content to the given one? Over 90% of the users responded that they not need any other type of information. The second graph explains
the next.
The question 3, particularly significant, asks what do you feel toward the game after the information you have received? The question is about curiosity, interest, challenge, engagement, empathy. As the graphs show, all these aspects strongly related to the motivation to play received very high scores. The question 3.
Yes.
The question 4 relates explanations, example, symbols, icons, other graphical representation, organization of information, the think among concept, the language register, with the student's learning style. As you can see from the graph, there are no negative scores, but the evaluation uncertain and agree provide, together with the thinking aloud and the students' comments, insight to rethink some aspects. Question 5, the last question of questionnaire 1. It proposed a system of qualitative evaluation using a semantic differential scale. The student using two opposite terms, evaluate contents, examples, language, wording, information sequence, symbol, icons, other graphical representation, text, keywords. The graph shows an overall evaluation of this aspect, but no step by step as for question 1.
The next.
The first question in questionnaire 2, submitted after the game session, asked after the game, did you find the following effective explanations, examples, symbol, icons, autographical representation, structure, link among concepts. The graph shows user satisfaction with the information received in terms of effectiveness.
The last question.
Second question shows a more qualitative articulation of the answers for content, examples, and keyword. Second question.
Okay.
I think there's a problem with the.
Okay.
I think it could be read this.
Okay.
I think we were here, right? Antoinette.
Yes.
Okay. In conclusion, based on the direct observation of users, thinking aloud, evaluations expressed through questionnaires, other user contributions such as questions, comments, and post-questionnaire observations, The concept expressed are increases 170%. The wording of the content has been revised 75%. Example has increased 150%. Graphic representation has been corrected 20%. And the text associated with images, more explicit content, 35%.
Okay. The last slide. Thank you for attention and sorry for the problem.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you, Antonella. Are there any questions? I think, okay, no raising hands. Yes, we have finished the session 4 for the first day, second day events. So I think you have a lunch break now until the 2 p.m. if there is no any change in the program. So I will leave the words to the organizers and continue.
For this session, actually we don't have any changes in our program, so we hope to see all of you at 2.
Yeah, I shared the Zoom info, meeting ID and the password in the chat section. So we can meet at Dylan's keynote speech at 2 o'clock about children and VR. See you soon then.
Have a good lunch. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.